Hi, BCA 9. I hope everyone is doing well. We are in week 9. I think it's week 9 of distance learning. So last week, I had you take a look at some photographs and analyzing them using a say mean matter chart. Well, a say matter chart minus the mean. You watched a short clip of a professor talking about what it means to analyze. And in terms of analyzing a piece of text, and that could be a photograph, it could be an article, it could be a spreadsheet, data from a spreadsheet. It pretty much can be anything. And since you're all destined, I'll say, to go in the medical field, you'll be analyzing a lot of work, lab work, blood work, so on and so forth. But it's not limited to just that, clearly. So in last week, we looked at some non-traditional texts. We're going to continue that. I'm calling this a analyze a photograph activity. And so last week, taking a different approach, using the say matter chart, just to kind of feast your eyes and test the waters on, doing something a little different. Not that your experience with the say mean matter chart is non-existent. You've worked with them before, but I just wanted to take a different approach. And so I'm doing again this week, not using a say mean matter chart, but using a specific form that guides you with some specific items when analyzing a piece of text. And in this case, a photograph. So let's take a look here. So I've already taken liberty and analyzed this text right here that you see. And I have completed this form that you're going to see in just a moment. So you're just following along as I model how I analyze this piece of text. Okay, so here's the text, and the text is called The Lasting Effects of Bullying, came out in 2013. So this is taken into steps. So the first step is to meet the photo, kind of like an informal greeting. So in the first box, which you're going to use bullet points, and they're going to be words or phrases, not complete sentences. So it says, quickly scan the photo. What do you notice first? So when I scan the photo, all right, what I noticed first is bright and cheery day surrounding emptiness and deep sadness. Wow, that is pretty deep, but there are times I can be a pretty deep guy. So what do you notice first? In other words, okay, what jumps out at you? What kind of just screams your attention? And that's what I did. I saw a bright and cheery day, but that cheery day is surrounding emptiness and deep sadness, and I see it coming from this subject right here. Okay. All right, so meeting the photograph. All right, now what we got to do is say, okay, well, what type of photo is this? Is it a portrait? Is it a landscape? Is it family? Is it candid? Is it architectural? Is it documentary? Selfie. Okay, so I want to go over some of the languages here. Some of you might know the definitions, but I feel it necessary to go over some. So, portrait. So, let me go over here. Let's see. Not that one, not that one, not that one. Bear with me, bear with me, bear. Oh, here we go. Okay, so this is an example of a portrait. A portrait is likeliness of a person's face. All right, so we see that in that example there. Okay. Landscape. Okay, let me go to the landscape. Example. Here we go. And no, I am not interested. So here's an example of landscape photography, right? It represents natural inland, which this is an example of. We see a pond, or coastal scenery. Okay, so we got that one. The next one, aerial or satellite. And here we go. And we're going to close out of that. So here's an example of aerial, which is pretty much produced by the air. We see this when we look at Google satellite, right? This appears to be a section of a town, looks pretty residential. So way up in the air. The next one is I want to go over is event. Okay, events. Here's an event one, right? So this is an example of event photography. Something is happening of importance, right? This appears that it's probably some kind of concert. You see a lot of people gathering, and clearly this did not happen in the last several weeks, but much prior to that. But we see that there's an event happening of some kind of importance. Another one I want to go over is posed. Pose. Which one is the pose here? Okay, this one. This is kind of a funny one. A pose photograph is, assuming a particular attitude or stance that hopes to impress others. So this is an example, like he's posing, he's trying to, evoke some kind of, or I should say, elicit some kind of response from the viewers, right? His stance is showing, the importance of. So the dad is, he's aware that the photographer is taking it, and his stance is eliciting something and has a particular attitude about a subject. Okie dokie. Candid. Let me go to the candid one. Okay, so candid pretty much is taken without being noticed. It's an unposed position, right? So in this example, you have two young boys there. They may not know that the photograph is being taken. And even if they do, they're not posing for it. Whatever activity that they are engaged in, they're focusing on that. Okay. So with that, and I'm not going to go over documentary. Action, that's pretty, self-explanatory. Same with selfie. Architectural, I'm sorry I don't have an example for that, but if you look that up, you'll see some examples of perhaps buildings of architectural value and significance. This particular photograph is a candid one. Why? It's because it's taken without the subject noticing what's happening, right? The subject is not posing on purpose. They're just there. So, and when you notice with my responses, they are in red. This one I just put in bold. Is there a caption? No, there is no caption. So I just bolded that. Okay. And now what we're going to do is go to part 2. We got to observe its parts. Right? So we've met the photograph. Now we got to observe its parts and start just kind of identifying them before we break it down and analyze it. This one, bullet points, words, phrases. We're going to list, well, what I did was list the people, objects, and activities I see. So in the photograph, right, I see a young boy, right? It's the only people, right? Objects, right? Inanimate objects, right? A swing set, actually swing sets, a wooden bench. I even see a house in the background along with a couple, it could be pine trees, all right? And activities, there are no activities happening in the photograph. It's pretty just, it's still neutral, if you will. All right, now that I've identified people, objects, activities, write one sentence summarizing this photo. Now, again, you'll see that my one sentence summary is written objectively, meaning I don't write my emotion, I don't convey my emotions, I don't express my feelings, I don't use any I statements whatsoever, right? So, one sentence summarizing this photo, A young boy is sitting on a park bench in an empty park that appears to be deep in thought, looking downward with an expressionless face. Okay, so there's the summary. All right, now we go to the last part. Try to make sense of it. This you're going to do in full sentences. Answer as best as you can. The caption, if available, may help. And we don't have a caption. So it's all going to come from our brains as well as prior knowledge. Prior knowledge. Okay, so we have a series of questions here in beginning to break down the components and elements of this photo, the lasting effects of bullying. Okie dokie. So number one, who took this photo? Okay, so this photo, there is no, I mean, clearly there was a photographer, but it's not listed. I got this photograph from a credible mental health bullying website. So all I wrote here, it is unknown. And when you get to do this on your own, you can write the same thing. It is unknown. But I like to take steps. I like to take things a little deeper before I start to get really deep. So I wrote, it is unknown, however, the person who took it may be aware of the boy's sadness and wants to capture what young children experience when they are victims of bullying. Now, that could be said with a lot of photographs, but there's just something a little chilling about this boy and what he may be going through in his head. Okay? So, when you get to do this on your own, feel free to take it a step further. Number two, where is it from? This photo is from a website that focuses on how impactful bullying is on a child. Feel free to use the same language when you do your own. Okay. And when is it from? 2013, because I have that right here. Okay, now we get to the analysis. Why was it taken? In other words, what's the significance? What is the impact the photograph is having on the viewer, the reader, if you will? List evidence from the photo or your knowledge about the topic/subject that led you to your conclusion. In other words, draw conclusions. Okay. This is a refresher because I'm sure you learned what it means to draw conclusions in middle school. But if you follow down here, right, I just give you a refresher. Drawing conclusions helps readers deepen their understanding of a given piece of text, whether if it's traditional or non-traditional text. So use one of these drawing conclusion sentence frames. If you don't need any of these frames, then you can generate your own. But here are some right here, such as, upon analysis of the text, it can be concluded, blank, because blah, 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 blah. Or the photograph suggests, blah, 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 right? This one down here, the photographer believes, blah, 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 because so on and so forth. Okay. Now you'll notice with mine, I weave in more than one of these. All right, and you'll see how I did that in a moment. Okay. So this is all in complete sentences, and let me read it for you. So it says, upon analysis of the text, it can be concluded that the boy is finding some sort of solace or peace at a playground, which is ironically a hotspot of bullying activity. It is evident that the boy is deep in thought after something was done or said to him. It could be suggested that he was the subject of physical or verbal harassment at school and therefore retreated to a safe space. While the boy is sitting, he contemplates what had happened to him. He feels alone, vulnerable, and uncertain. It is possible that if the boy does not speak up or seek help, long-lasting effects such as depression and anxiety will surface. There is a higher risk of mental health problems developing when bullying is happening regularly to a child. Some of these problems range from poor academic performance, low self-esteem, and an increased probability of suicide. So you'll see what I did here. I start my analysis directly with the text, right? I talk about how he's deep in thought. It's possible that something happened to him at school, and he goes to a place that he finds some kind of peace. It's empty there. He wants to be alone in his frame of mind. He needs peace and quiet. And again, it's ironic because again, playgrounds are and have been hotbeds of bullying activity. In this photograph here, it's maybe a little weird or awkward that there are no children at all. It's just him. And why is he there? That's something, to think about as well. Why does he find comfort in being at this playground deep in thought? Why there? I then kind of transition to talking about, okay, if he doesn't speak up, these are some possible long-lasting effects. And then I transition how this could impact his mental health. And I know this to be true because of things I have read online, articles, documentaries, so on and so forth. And you have some experience as well. Okay. Now, like I said earlier, I wove in some other sentences here because it just lend itself to it. Okay. Now, let me tell you, it didn't take me 1 or 2 minutes to analyze this. I really had to not only look at the photograph again and again, right? Think about what I noticed first, okay? Identifying the parts, and then from there, okay, why was this photograph taken? What conclusion is drawn from this photograph, right? I didn't specifically and directly state why the photographer decided to focus in on this young boy here, right? But I think I alluded to that within my analysis. Okay, you'll see that my analysis is roughly 7 sentences, right? Because when you're analyzing something, it's going to take more time and effort and sentences, if you will, in this case, to express that form of elaboration, right? What conclusions are being drawn? What makes this text significant or powerful? Okay, I know I spoke a lot. That's just part of my charm, I guess. So please, that's what I did with this activity. There's no more on this document. Now, what's going to happen is, since you've watched this video, in addition to the activity from the previous week, you're going to get the same form, but with a different photograph. Okay. And that will be a separate link, and I will give you instructions on how to get access to it. But in the meantime, just know that you're going to be getting a different photograph. The photograph is focusing on bullying and mental health. And I should say that when you look at this photograph, when you look at a photograph that I'm going to assign to you, you're looking at it through the lens of bullying and mental health, the impact, the severity that bullying can have on one's mental health faculties, one's mental health wellness. Okay, so you're not just looking at a photograph just to look at it and that's it. You're looking at it through that specific lens. Okay, all right, there you have it, folks. We'll talk soon. Thank you so much.